Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Virtue Signal, the podcast about being moral in immoral times, or amoral times, hosted by me, Eleanor Russell. And I'm here with Taylor Meanswell.
Good morning.
And I'm here with Andre Kello.
Hey.
And we are here to discuss a text by Andrei Tarkovsky, no relation to Andre Kello, Sculpting in Time.
May I begin us with an epigraph?
Please.
The allotted function of podcast is not, as is often assumed, to put across ideas, to propagate thoughts, to serve as example. The aim of podcast is to prepare a person for death. Welcome to the show.
God, that's so real. That is so real. This is why I don't listen to podcasts. Yeah, as I'm actively unpreparing for death.
So who are your guys? And it's the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Andre, this is a very important text to you.
Yeah. Andrei Tarkovsky is a filmmaker I like a lot. And I read this book when I was a young man at at New York.
Gross. Boo. Boo.
I'm the one who
Shame.
has to edit that. You know. At New York University's film program, I was more or less obsessed with Andrei Tarkovsky's films ever since I saw Stalker and Solaris on double video cassette from my local video store, Movies. It was a cow-themed video rental place that was in my neighborhood in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Cow print everywhere. And they had a really good foreign section, and they had they had Solaris and they had Stalker, and I watched them over and over again.
You were moved.
Yes, and I had my big glass of milk, and I watched these movies. And my father always gave me a hard time because those were the movies that they used to show on TV when he was a little boy in France.
They used to show Solaris on TV in France?
No, because the timing doesn't work out. I mean, he moved to America in 1977, and so, that was before Stalker was even made. But, they would show Russian and Soviet films on French television, and what he would say was, show the Russian films, and you see the water, and then you see the grass, and then you see the tree, and then the sky, and then the tree again, and then the grass, and then the water.
I love Danielle. I miss Danielle. Andre's dad, Danielle, he's like genuinely one of the weirdest people I've ever met in my life.
Everybody says that.
He's really handsome. He's like extraordinarily handsome. Like it's like the thing that you like notice. You're like, wow, why are you like this tall, handsome, brooding Frenchman? And then he's insane.
He looks like if Liam Neeson were wearing the Asterix mustache.
100%. That's exactly what he looks like. It's crazy. Yeah. So, okay. So I didn't really know much about Tarkovsky until I was in undergrad and I watched Stalker. But it didn't really hit me until Andre and I went to go see Nostalgia at
one of my most cherished memories
at BAM in Brooklyn. And there's a scene in that movie, as in many Tarkovsky movies, where it's like a barn, I think, and there's water.
Some wreckage of a building.
Yeah, dripping from the ceiling, what's left of a ceiling, into a puddle on the ground. And it fucking, like, wrecked me. I don't know. It's like people, I call it this TTF, that Tarkovsky feeling. And it's something I talked to my friend Claire Comstock-Gay about, who's a writer, and you should read her work. She's the astrologist for The Cut. And she and I talk about this, like, the way people talk about Rothko, they talk about, like, they see a Rothko painting and, like, the totality of it just, like, really, like, moves them.
Yeah, I think that Tarkovsky is more or less, concerned with the sublime.
Yeah, and so there's, like, a kind of immersion that you get in that just sort of moves you. And that's kind of what happened to me when I saw Nostalgia at BAM with Andre in, like, 2013. Is that, like...
It was my 30th birthday, and it was 2014.
2014, okay.
Yeah, so now you have almost enough information to steal my identity. Good luck with that. I cherish that memory. It was the part from Nostalgia that sticks with me is the main character doing a kind of like Catholic labyrinth walking back and forth in a swimming pool holding a candle, a kind of ersatz ritual for more or less dealing with the pain of the past, like the concept of nostalgia. I have a lot of thoughts about that movie, but I think that the text itself is concerned with a philosophy, a kind of artistic game plan for what is the job of a film director? How do they do
Game
a good
plan
job?
is a strange choice of word, I think, for the text.
You don't see Tarkovsky as like a jock.
He's not. Well, honestly, the thing that's weird about the book is it's supposed to be this like manifesto, right? But it
And
like
they're often quite strident passages.
yeah, but it's not like I'm a historian of the avant-garde. I've read many, 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 many manifestos in my life. This is pretty lackluster. Of
Did
a
you read the one I
manifesto.
sent you? Sorry.
I've read everything you've ever sent me, Taylor.
I read
I'm so
I read the
sorry.
parts that I could make out through the smudges of tears and blood.
Yeah, I read the letters from the magazines that you pulled out. It's sort of rambling, but it's very Russian. I don't know. Is that racist? I don't know. It's very Russian.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm beginning to notice on our journey of the pod here, there is a sense among Russian authors, philosophers, etc., that we've engaged with. There is a sense that they underwent a sort of parallel that Eastern and no, please, the Eastern and Western modernity split and began to run parallel to each other.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And they seem to feel as outsiders in like the world of Western discourse and art criticism and aesthetic value.
See, I think there's this thing that I really like about these Russian writers in the middle of the 20th century and like in the post-Soviet era where they write like they're insiders and everyone else is on the outside and it's just them. You know what I mean?
Right, like the West is the barbarian.
Yeah, and they're like, well, we're out here like fucking being normal and you're out here transgressing.
I think Tarkovsky is a separate and interesting case, though, because he rejected the Soviets. He
Yeah,
left.
that's true. Yeah.
He, in the 1980s, partly because he wanted to make films outside of the Soviet censorship system and partly to seek medical care for the cancer that he got while he was making Stalker because of exposure to hazardous toxic chemicals when he was shooting on location in Eastern Europe. And, he was always incredibly critical of the Soviet system, of the Soviet film industry. He was not like a true believer when it came to, like, he was a true believer when it came to a lot of stuff,
Right.
but
like,
not when it came to the Soviet project.
well, like me, he was like Soviet realism is bullshit.
And the thing that's interesting to me about that is that, like, he's sort of like Solzhenitsyn in that Solzhenitsyn became this sort of like mascot in the West for the Soviet Union because he was so critical of the Soviets. Mm-hmm. You read Gulag Archipelago or Cancer Ward or something, and it's just complaints about how everything is corrupt and dysfunctional and everything. And Tarkovsky, likewise, does not paint a beautiful picture of the Soviet Union, and then when he leaves, only has negative things to say.
I have a relevant pull quote, actually,
Go for
if
it.
I may.
Please.
I neglected to put down a page number, so forgive me, but the more clearly I discerned the stamp of materialism on the face of our planet, irrespective of whether I was observing the West or the East. This is written in, 86, this book, something like that?
It was toward the end of his life, around then.
The more I come up against unhappy people, saw the victims of psychoses symptomatic of an inability or unwillingness to see why life had lost all delight and all value, why it had become oppressive. And the note I want to make here is that the Khrushchev era, the de-Stalinization, the liberalization, whatever you want to call it, did open up doors for Tarkovsky early on in his directing career to get opportunities he probably wouldn't have otherwise, and be able to make films he probably wouldn't have otherwise been able to make. The other thing that the Khrushchev era did, though, was pivot to consumerism and say, well, world communism is kind of off the table, so we're actually just going to like try to make our citizens as fat and happy as the West citizens. And this same pivot to consumerism ended up, as we see in the quote here, alienating Tarkovsky, and I would assume other late Soviet artists as well. And so what you see him responding to here is the shallowness and emptiness of consumerism. In his case, it had, a red hammer and sickle stamped on it, right? But throughout the 70s and 80s in the West, a similar decay was perceived, certainly.
It's a shift from materialism good, which is dialectical materialism, which is like awareness of material conditions, to materialism bad, which is blue jeans, Coca-Cola, TV set in every house.
I see there's a kind of Beckettian logic to Tarkovsky that I'm interested in that sort of exploration of what you're talking about, like the shallowness. And like, there's a kind of shallow fullness that I get from his work. He's like, what if we just strip the world of any sort of excess that is derived from anything, not natural or not human, and see what that looks like and what that feels like, and what that ends up being is kind of unbearable. It kind of it cleaves you,
There is a kind of interesting recurring idea in Tarkovsky of nature invading human spaces.
Yeah, well, that's what Stalker specifically is about this.
Well, and Solaris, and then Mirror too. I mean, all of them really. He has a spiritual relationship with nature.
He's kind of like Schrader in that way, but Schrader's
a lot in
thing
common with Schrader.
is like being a man, and Tarkovsky's like being a person in the world.
All right, well, you said the magic word, so now I'm going to talk a lot about movies.
Go for it.
Okay, so Paul Schrader wrote a book in the 1970s.
Did I just unlock something by saying Schrader? Is that what happened?
Well, I was thinking about this because yesterday I went to the movies. I went to the Music Box, and I saw a screening of Je tu elle by Chantal Ackerman. And Chantal...
Whom I have met.
Yes. Why don't you tell your Chantal Ackerman story?
Okay. Sorry, Andre. I'll tell the... Okay. So I went to go see at Light Industry in Greenpoint, Brooklyn in like 2013, 2012, whatever. It was a screening of a Michael Snow movie. I can't remember what the Michael Snow movie was. Chantal Ackerman was introducing the film. She's there.
Well, can you describe Light Industry as you experience the space?
It's tiny. It's like a tiny room in Greenpoint. It's like maybe seating for like 30, and we were pushing in the fire code. Like, it was bad.
What time of year
they
was
had a
this?
screener. It was the spring. And so Chantal Ackerman is there. The two guys who run Light Industry are like, we're so excited to have Chantal Ackerman here, blah, 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 blah. They're like insufferable. They're really annoying. And then she gets up and she says, I didn't know that you would be seeing it in these conditions. I didn't know.
Which is specifically referring to the projector being in the same room as the audience.
Exactly.
Which means that you could hear the projector during the film.
You could hear it, and it was driving, and she was like, this is irresponsible. This is like repulsive. This is horrible. Meanwhile, she's smoking a cigarette the entire time in this tiny room where she is not supposed to be smoking a cigarette. And
a room that is the size of like a cargo elevator.
And she's like, and Andre wasn't even there. And she's like,
I've been to Light Industry.
oh yeah. And so she's like, if I were you, I would leave. You should leave. You should get up and leave. And so half the audience got up and left. And meanwhile, the guys who run the space are like flustered. Like, one of them is like actively pissed. The other one is just like, it's like his entire worldview has exploded. And so I actually end up staying a little bit into the film because I'm curious because I'm a sound studies person. I'm like, what does it sound like with the projector run? Like, I want to know what it's, and I watch it for like 10 minutes, and it's this thing where like a ball is rolling across a mountain. It's like very weird and cool, but like not really.
Michael Snow, famous for his structuralist films, not necessarily narrative.
Yeah. And then I eventually leave because I was like, okay, all right. No, she's right. The projector does kind of fuck with this. And so then I got up and left later. But I didn't leave. I didn't leave immediately when she said to leave, which I still regret to this day, but I was just so curious. You know what I mean?
There's a reason that every movie theater puts the projector in a separate room and shoots and projects the movie through a pane of glass. And the reason is projectors are loud.
Yeah.
They're loud and they're annoying and they make the film worse.
Yeah, and I to this day, I still regret not standing in solidarity when the other folks left when she said immediately.
But the line that I remember that you said at the time was that she says, here, say it to...
Wait, what was it? I can't remember what it was.
They're nice guys, but they don't know anything about experimental film.
That's right. That's what she said. They're nice guys, but they don't understand anything about experimental film. That's exactly what she said. That's right.
And in 2015, which is only a couple of years later, she killed herself.
Yep. R.I.P. Chantal Ackerman.
One of those queer artists who committed suicide after their mother died.
This is one of my obsessions, actually, are queer people who kill themselves after their mom dies. One of the most famous examples is Alexander...
Oh, Alexander McQueen.
Alexander McQueen. Yeah. It's a thing. There's like a kind of person...
Roland Barthes maybe did it, but it's unclear whether he deliberately stepped in front of the truck.
I think that Roland Barthes spiritually did it. Like, that's the kind of thing he would do and would have done if he hadn't been assassinated by,
All right, so let's roll it back a little bit.
Roland back.
So I was thinking about Paul Schrader because I was at the screening of Je suis il, which is the first feature film by Chantal Ackerman. And the first third of the film is Chantal Ackerman herself hanging out in her apartment nude, eating...
I'm sorry, say the word nude again.
She's entirely nude.
Okay.
Sort of draped in various rags. And then she's eating a 5-pound bag of sugar with a spoon. And she's in...
Many such cases.
She's in an otherwise empty room on a bare mattress. And we hear her internal dialogue, which is more or less reciting from her journal entries. And it occurred to me at the time, this is very Paul Schrader shit. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, Paul Schrader stole it from Robert Bresson.
Also, it's very Beckett, though, too. Spoor,
Now, Beckett and Ackerman have more in common with each other than they do with Bresson and Tarkovsky. Mm-hmm. And the main difference is that Bresson and Tarkovsky are Christians. All right, like Schrader, right? Schrader is a Calvinist, Bresson is a French Catholic, and Tarkovsky is Russian Orthodox. And, Ackerman, very atheist, right? Just like Beckett, right? And for many of the same reasons, partly because of the, cynicism and darkness of feeling alienated from a world where everyone you meet is too stupid to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And it is weird.
The Glencoe, Illinois of it all. It
is weird that I think everybody feels this way about their hometown, don't they?
It's true.
It's why you leave your hometown. It's because everybody there is stupid. Now, Taylor, maybe you don't feel this way about Muscatine, but I mean,
totally feels this way about Muscatine.
Muscatine is a pretty special place in the history of the world. It has a lot of weird coincidences that make it a kind of ley line intersection.
I have thought about it in terms of the ley lines before.
What is that? I don't know what that means.
Big circles.
It's energy, dog. Okay. All right? The energy of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes the energies overlap.
But specifically the thing where a person sits in an empty room and struggles with the unpleasantness of their own existence as a cinematic subject matter. This is something Tarkovsky does. And one of the reasons that I think that his films have this connection between this existential dread and this religious ecstasy is because of the stuff that he talks about in this particular book. This book explains exactly how his religious conception connects with his strategy for directing movies, which is that the film director is God. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that the inability of the film director to effectively create the film that they want to make is the same thing that happened with God and the universe, and it's why we're unhappy.
There's this crazy part in it where he's talking about making a movie with this actress, and he's like, and so I deliberately we did not tell the actress about what happens at the end of the movie. Like, she didn't know what was happening in the movie deliberately. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so Andre. Like, it's so manipulative. Like, it's
In that
so...
passage, he laments giving another actor the entire script. He's like, next time I won't do that.
It's crazy. I was like, who has that in them?
Oh, Hitchcock.
I know it's a thing that people do. It's just like, I am like, I can't.
James Cameron.
I know it's a thing. It's just like
The people who treat the filmmaking process like they are God making things, they treat their actors the way that God treats humanity, which is in a kind of paternalistic, disrespectful, condescending way.
yeah, it's crazy. It reminds me of being on set with you. It's awful.
Yeah, I know. It is. I get that.
But also, there's also a thing I wanted to add, though. Like, there's this relationship that Tarkovsky has to his, irrespective to his, like, domain as being God when he makes movies. His relationship theologically to God is very interesting to me because I think he doesn't believe in God, but he knows there's something going on, which is how I feel. I'm like, there's no God, but something fucky is happening here. Something's off. Like something is happening that I don't know what it is.
But that is also a thing that the characters in his films experience.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Like, if
Wait, I have a riff. I need you to go splice back in. Excuse me, before we get too far away from ourselves. I was just picturing David Cameron directing Kate Winslet on the set of Titanic, and he doesn't give her the script. He's like, no, I don't want her to know what happens, but it's the Titanic. I thought that was funny. Okay. Time is not linear. We'll get into that in a little bit. Please resume whatever you were saying.
James Cameron being like, I can't let you know about Wikipedia.
Right. I don't want you to have any preconceived notions. I want you to have an organic reaction when you see the iceberg.
Yeah.
maybe it all works out.
What's the funniest movie where you would do that approach?
I think it's got to be something where the ending is well known.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to
in
think.
advance,
Like, like the Bible. I don't
right,
know.
the Passion of the
Passion
Christ.
of the Christ, where you don't know if he's
United 93.
United 93, which I've never seen. Maybe we should watch that. I don't know.
Actually getting geese to fly into the engine, so Tom Hanks's reaction is genuine.
Oh, that's the Captain Sully Sullenberger movie.
Yeah.
Which, Nathan Fielder, known friend of the pod.
Nathan Fielder, stop DMing us. We'll have you on when we'll have you
Yeah.
on. It's not a big deal. It's not going to make or break your career.
Anyway,
I'm just so reluctant to ever have a Canadian on the show.
that's fair. I totally get it. You don't want to legitimize that lifestyle.
Kids listen to this.
What were we talking about? I was talking about the theology of it, but like there's something like he himself doesn't believe in God, so he's like sort of playing out these narratives to compensate.
In the 20th century, there's a long distinguished history of not just artists, but philosophers who have this relationship with God. Mm-hmm. Right? I think probably number one with a bullet is Kierkegaard. Right? And Kierkegaard heavily influences Bergman. And then Bergman is a giant inspiration and influence on Tarkovsky. And Tarkovsky, to the extent that Tarkovsky's final film, The Sacrifice, features Bergman's longtime cinematographer, Sven Nykvist, as the cinematographer.
What's crazy about Sven Nykvist is that he's also been he's one of the best cinematographers of all time, ever. Like, but he also worked on a lot of movies that like aren't like...
Yeah, he's the cinematographer of Nora Ephron's Mixed Nuts, starring Steve Martin.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And, hey, gorgeous film.
But
gorgeous.
Like not... Didn't he also do some like 90s thriller we watched with Kevin Spacey?
Oh, I don't think so.
Whatever.
Nora Ephron's Mixed Nuts was my username on... Oh, never mind.
Don't give up too much. You don't want to get doxxed.
That's for Patreon only.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like that's such a beautiful kind of Kierkegaardian thing about like sort of the relationship between being this artist in capital, under capital, is like you also make Mixed Nuts starring, Steve Martin, directed by Nora Ephron.
Starring Soren Kierkegaard. Help me check my comprehension. When you refer to this relationship to God, the way I read it is it's though whether he actually believes in God or not, he feels like he ought to.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like that's his compulsion
He
is
needs
to
to
bring
behave
him.
as if there is one.
Sure, but not for fear of damnation, rather for a sense of duty as an artist.
Well, I think that he feels connected to the past in various ways, and that religion and nature and his own father and the country that he lives in and history are all in various ways sort of like, knives in his back that he is attempting to, struggle to ignore, but then has to pay attention to as he, tries to survive. I I think in Nostalgia and in The Sacrifice, the two films he made after he left the Soviet Union, you see this attitude toward the world as being this like weight. This like it's impossible to live.
But it's productive though too at the same time.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know, I didn't really understand that sense of obligation really, and maybe this is on me for being just sort of a privileged Western white girl, but like that sense of having an obligation to the past and like a duty to sort of perform in certain ways didn't really hit me until I went to grad school, and my advisor was a student of Jose Munoz and like was like, so here's how this goes. I'm your advisor for life. We're like in each other's lives forever, which is like very weird for a advisor to do. Like normally just drop it like it's hot.
Listener, the advisor is sitting in the room like Yoko Ono right now.
Yeah, he's here. Actually, he also is the scholar of Yoko Ono.
Aren't we all, darling?
Yeah, are we all?
I
Flipping
am.
my
I've
hair.
written at least one academic paper about Yoko Ono.
Yeah,
But
and-
I didn't put my name on it because it was for somebody else when I was taking their class for money.
Oh, was that when you were on Monroe Street? I remember that. Okay, so, and he's like, so here's how this goes. Like, we're part of a tradition of disidentification. This is what we do. We're like invested in this like methodology, and this is what we do. And this is what you're going to teach your students to do. And you're going to be like this kind of advisor to your graduate students. And I was like, okay. And then I had grad students at SIU, and I'm still in their lives. And like, it's this thing that I inherited. And like, I never had that until I went to grad school. And so it's like, okay, yeah, no, this is my, and then I was like, is this what it's like to be a man? Is this what it's like to be like, your father like sits you down, like tells you like what you're supposed to do? Like my father did with my
No,
brother.
but it is what it's like to be a Sith Lord.
Okay.
You're Darth Maul.
I'm Darth Maul.
I don't.
Is there a drag queen called Darth Molly?
Not yet.
Free idea.
The in the 1980s, I think was more or less defined by this like inexorable march toward a future that looked bleaker and more grim every single day, but then also a kind of pining for the distant past. Right, nostalgia. Right, Tarkovsky makes this movie Nostalgia that's like about like walking around ruins and thinking about your dead father and stuff like that. And, time travel, I think, is a really big part of the question of how Tarkovsky thinks about his experience of the world. Taylor?
I have a relevant pull quote.
Go for it.
If I may. It's a little bit longer than the last one. For the moment, we are witnessing the decline of the spiritual while the material long ago developed into an organism with its own bloodstream. To me, this is the marketization, the technology, credit
Commodity
scores and shit like
fetishism,
that.
yeah.
Yes. And that material world became the basis of our lives. It paralyzed us and riddled us with sclerosis. It is clear to everyone that material progress doesn't in itself make people happy, but all the same, we go on fanatically multiplying its achievements. The stock market has never been higher, for instance, is a common refrain we hear. Back to the quote. We have reached the point where, as Stalker says, the present has essentially merged with the future in the sense that it contains all the preconditions for imminent disaster. We recognize this, and yet we can do nothing to stop it happening. Time is what the book is about.
That's
Is
so
that fair to say?
fucking brutal. I think that thing about the present merging with the future is so like what Mark Fisher, we've talked about this in the
Yes.
past, about capitalist realism.
My metamodern king.
It's just,
And
it's
this is
devastating.
more or less what the premise of his final film, The Sacrifice, is, right? Because it's about a guy who is with his family in a country home, and the world ends, right? Nuclear war, but you know, the guy, he's like, I wonder if there's something I can do about this. And so he goes to a witch, and he has sex with the witch, and then she's like, all right, I'll turn back time, and I'll get rid of this so that it doesn't happen.
Fellas,
But you
this is why she comes first, all right? Good things happen.
but you have to burn down your house. And so he does. So he burns the house down. But the fact is that you can't burn your house down and then tell your family, a witch told me to do it in order to save the world from nuclear war, and not sound like a schizophrenic.
It's like botching the murder-suicide situation where you kill yourself first.
I
Totally
don't
something I would
think
do.
that's funny.
It's totally something I would do.
But I think that there's this thing about like nostalgia generally in the West as well in the same time period. Like in the 80s when that film comes out, in the West we have like the boomers who, like, if you're born in 1946, then in 1986 you're 40 years old and you're thinking about your lost youth. Right, you're thinking about 20 years ago when it was 1966 and you were young and you were happy.
See, Taylor and I can't relate because we're not 40.
So, like, you have Billy Joel doing a doo-wop album. You have David Bowie doing a doo-wop album. You have all this,
Everyone's doing too well.
and you have tons of time travel movies, right? You have the Back to the Future movies, and you have Peggy Sue gets married, and you know, there's this idea that like the answer to life's problems is to somehow make it 1959 again and have it stay there forever.
This is a cultural loop we are very much still stuck in.
You know, and
the
it's so
CD
funny.
is skipping.
And it's so funny, like that narrative in film being played out. Because yesterday on TCM, because I'm 85 years old, I'm not 40, but I am 85. I watched a bunch of war movies on TCM because it was Memorial Day weekend. And like the 50s movies that they were making in the 50s are like, this is hell. Like, we're living in hell. Isn't this the worst thing that's ever happened?
Like, the stuff from the 50s that you're describing, it feels incredibly contemporary. It feels so smart. God. It feels really like...
The gallows humor is incredible. Like,
and sometimes it seems like they're taking, like, really big risks with the kind of stuff that they want to talk about.
And it's especially, like, in terms of, like what we would call like, they're trying to be woke, but in this way that's actually, like, really authentic and, like, kind of incredible.
I mean, you see, like, early Sidney Poitier movies and, like, the stuff that John Cassavetes was in when he was a young man. And, you know, these are films where the attempt is to be as, like, in your face and confrontational, and we're going to talk about unions, and we're going to talk about race,
salt of the earth,
and we're going to talk about abortion. And
no, like, I watched this movie from 1951 yesterday called The Steel Helmet, where the premise, the whole movie revolves around this child, this Korean child. It's like, and he's this universe, and he's like, you know, an agent. He like has opinions and thoughts and feelings. It's like, I couldn't imagine, like, I don't think I've seen a film like that in the 2000s.
And I think that one of the reasons that there is this stark contrast between the cultural production of the 1950s and the 80s is that in the 80s, the cultural production is more or less defined by nihilism and cynicism. And this like desire for time travel, this like obsession with nostalgia is, I think, a kind of retreating from the cynicism of the 1980s. And I think that this book that Tarkovsky has written is an attempt to undo what he sees as a kind of like cynical global environment. You know,
I just had a thought. It occurs to me that cynicism is incompatible with realism. But nihilism is. Nihilism and realism can exist together. But cynicism proposes a kind of mental, like, ability to prognosticate that is just not real and true.
Nihilist realism is just Law and Order.
How dare... No. Law and Order isn't.
It's just if you're nihilistic and you do realism, you're just doing realism in the service of
That's
of
fair.
the state and authority.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Like if you just implement realism without any intervention, you're just reproducing the authority of the state, and
you're just exposing and
and
not
this is
critiquing.
something that Tarkovsky talks about in the book, right? Right at the very beginning, he says, you have to create an outside world for your characters that reflects their inside world.
Right, but also that's so like Tarkovsky like thing, like I know your inside world, like
Tarkovsky says that he's very much on board with auteurism, and a lot of these ideas that are in the book are recapitulations of ideas from André Bazin from Cahiers du Cinéma. Now, Bazin had two big things that influenced the people that came after him, the people who were his employees at the magazine, people like Francois Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard and Claude Chabrol and people like this. So Bazin says auteur theory, which is that there is one person who is in charge of being responsible for the decisions in a film, and that person is the source of artistic interpretation and intent, and that person is the director. And everybody else there, the writer, the producer, the actors, all a crew, everybody else is there to implement the director's vision, because the director is a 20th century modernist idea of the author as unitary creative force, and that the work is a kind of an expression of their soul or a manifestation of their id or whatever.
The director as a concept is actually like inherent to modernity itself. It didn't exist before modernity. This is true for theater directing too. Like Lessing was like the first theater director.
I mean, cinema didn't exist before modernity.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm sort of trying to.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. The director as a role, at the beginning of the silent era, it's more of like you have one person in charge of talking to the technical people, and you have another, like the most senior and established actor is then giving instruction to the other actors.
What I'm saying is that it's not just technology that leads to cinema being a modernist phenomenon. It's also like the concept of directing itself emerges from a kind of subjectivity that didn't exist prior to like modernity.
Yeah, I guess being a director is like Nietzschean, by itself. Yeah.
Is the role of director inherently, forgive me for only having a Western American context, but is the director
Daddy?
a manager? Right? Does the director come about before like a big investment in a production comes about?
I think what it is it's like.
So it's a capital influence rather than a technological.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a capital influence and a subjective influence. And I think what happens with cinema, because cinema is so dreamlike and invested in psychosis and sort of brings about psychic fantasies, what happens is then we start romanticizing and making meta-narratives, and the director becomes, and everybody else in the film becomes sort of a figment of our imagination. So the director is daddy while also being HR, while also being a director,
but imposing your own personal fantasy of how the world fits together is both the director's job and also what Tarkovsky is doing in the book. Yeah. Right? He's crafting a kind of fairy tale about the relationship between a director and God.
Yeah. I also would be remiss to not note the masculinity aspect of this whole apparatus. There's a kind of anxiety about obligation that I think auteur theory has, and also Tarkovsky expresses throughout Sculpting in Time.
Well, anxiety about obligation. I mean, that's why he chose to direct Hamlet.
Yeah,
in Russia.
And that's, and I talked a lot about the Russian obsession with Hamlet. And
right, but he's not doing the thing.
He's not doing the thing I was talking about yet.
Right. His thing is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to ever know what's going on. Right? He's not going to have somebody speak a speech about ideology.
But what's smart about that?
Wait. To be or not to be? No, for real. The director won't tell me.
No, what's smart about that, though, is that it exposes the character of Hamlet, who presents himself as an arrogant asshole. But the reason he behaves like that is because he has no fucking clue what's going on. He's a fucking child. I hate Hamlet. I really do. I hate him. I love the play. I hate Hamlet. That's I wrote it.
The Rudnick play.
Yeah. Fun story. My brother played Hamlet in a production of I Hate Hamlet when he was in high school, and they had to make, or he played Barrymore, and they had to make like a painting of him to hang as part of the set. So for a while we had like a painting of my brother as Barrymore in our basement. I have no idea what happened to it. My brother is insufferable, and it's part of because he was treated like this when he was in high school. Anyway.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of oil paintings made of me when I was a teenager.
Yeah. Imagine being 15 years old and an oil painting is made of you as Barrymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen iPads that were larger than the TV in our house, so we didn't have those kinds of resources. I think that Hamlet is really great, and more or less, creates a model for how Tarkovsky specifically, depicts these heroes who are struggling alone in an ugly but also beautiful world to figure out what their relationship is to existence. This is a thing that I was describing earlier, the thing that he has in common with Schrader and Bresson and Ackerman. I think if
who did the donkey movie?
That was Bresson.
Okay.
That's Ohazar Balthazar.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, say, for example, the beginning of Stalker, right? And a very long sequence where our main character is like puttering around in his house while his wife and child are asleep, and he's like dreading that he has to go and investigate this mystery. He has to take somebody into the zone in order to like satisfy his obligations as a stalker, right? And it causes him emotional distress, and his wife is crying and pulling on his his clothes and telling him, "You don't go, please don't leave me," right? I think that this idea of the like being stuck in a room thinking about what you have to do is you can just keep doing it forever. You can just keep making, and Schrader does. He just keeps making this movie over and over.
And then Todd Haynes is like, okay, I'm going to do that, but what if it's a woman? What if it's a woman and sitting in a room thinking about what she has to do?
Yeah, but Safe is his remake of Jean Dielman, which is an Ackerman film.
Yeah.
So when Todd Haynes is doing it, he's doing it as an exercise of style.
I don't consider, this is a hot take, I don't think Safe is really a remake of...
Well, it's what he said in The Village Voice. I had this conversation with Kelly Reichardt in 2002.
And what did she say?
She said, I don't think it's a remake of Jean Dielman. And I said, he said that it was in a interview in The Village Voice.
Okay, but like, I don't think she's still right. Kelly Reichardt is still right. Reich. She's Reich.
Okay.
I mean, he can say that, but it's...
I want to mention about Tarkovsky that he is by far the single biggest like cultural imprint that remains of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
I would say number 2 is Tetris. And like I'm watching this show on Apple TV Plus called For All Mankind, and it's wrapping up now, and it's an alternate history of the space race. It begins with, in the first episode of the show, with the Soviets, spoiler, getting to the moon first. And the long tail of that is that the Soviet Union never collapses, that it becomes the economic powerhouse of the planet Earth, and that eventually the Cold War becomes a kind of, normal state of affairs. And, eventually the Soviet Union has the same kind of total transformation into successful capitalist indulgence as China does. And so in the most recent season we see that they have colonized Mars, and there's a Soviet governor of Mars, and there's a child on the planet who is making a movie on her video camera, and the governor is like, perhaps you will be our next Andrei Tarkovsky. Right. So, here we are in 2012, and the byword for Soviet filmmaker everyone in the world would recognize is not Eisenstein, it's not Dziga Vertov, it's not Sokurov or any of these other guys, it's not Kira Muratova, it's Andrei Tarkovsky, the guy who didn't like the Soviet Union, right? But, presumably in this alternate history, maybe he never gets cancer, so who knows? But the cultural impact of these things, like, one big difference between Tarkovsky and, say, for example, Eisenstein, is this relationship to realism. Bazin said, and this is the second thing that Bazin had, apart from the auteur theory, was that the point of cinema is to accurately reflect reality, which is why you should edit as little as possible and do all of your meaning through mise en scène.
That's crazy.
But that's also what Tarkovsky does. He doesn't cut, like Eisenstein cut a lot. That was more or less his thing.
His deal was
like he saw each individual shot as being like an idea.
Well, editing is inherently a postmodern concept, I think, in film. Yeah.
Now, I have a quick question for you about the vocabulary. Does mise en scene refer specifically to the composition, or is the setting also a factor?
The mise en scène is all of the things that you've arranged inside the frame of the film. So
not just the shapes and the lines and the rule of thirds, but also like the fact that we're looking at a couch instead of a stool.
You just like contrast it against editing as being like, editing is about the relationship between things in time. But when there are separate shots, and mise en scène is the relationship between things in the frame, in a single moment, or as time goes on within a shot, right? Things entering and leaving the frame rather than the frame changing because you made a cut. So, like, Eisenstein believed that.
Help me out here. When we're talking about I've only seen 3 movies, but like the beginning of Citizen Kane, right? The Union Forever scene, right? Where there's a conversation happening in the foreground and then there's something else happening in the background, and the scene is moved forward by us seeing the kid move from playing in the yard to coming inside. Is that an example of mise en scene?
Yeah. When you do things in the frame like that, like when you choreograph stuff within the frame, like say, for example, Tarkovsky, right? If he has the camera track along a nearly dry riverbed and, examine a bunch of detritus that's half stuck in the mud, and we hear the music and we look at these objects as we're slowly passing by them with the camera, right? Then what we're talking about is like a coherent visual relationship between objects inside of a composition, right? And that's mise en scène, And so, like, the thing, like, Citizen Kane is interesting because it is both revolutionary in terms of mise en scène and also because of deep focus. And then also in terms of editing, because Robert Wise was the editor on that film. And Robert Wise was like a pioneer in a kind of editing style that like is aware of the technologies and possibilities of filmmaking, right? This is a thing that Deleuze talks about in Cinema 1 and Cinema 2, which is that, Robert Wise, among others, takes the things that Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock are doing before World War II and helps create a new cinema after World War II that uses editing as opposed to mise en scène to carry meaning.
And a thing that's
like pet sounds.
Yeah. Pet Sounds is a great example. You're using the technology of the studio to create new things that were not possible in the past that reflect not a relationship to like our understanding of like lived reality, but a kind of theater of the mind.
It's one of those things that like a huge thing in my dissertation / my book project is like the way that we fetishize liveness is like really overrated. And there's actually things that happen when you record something that opens up like new ontologies that I find really interesting.
You put a bark at the beginning of the track.
Yeah. And I think like there's ways in which you can do that evilly, where you can be like, I'm editing and reshaping and reforming reality, and I'm blah 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 blah, and I'm doing AI, and I'm remapping reality. Or there's ways you can do it that expose and critique our lives and reveal things that were heretofore unrevealed. And I think Pet Sounds does that. I think films do that. I think
that's in line with Tarkovsky's sense of obligation.
exactly. That is him doing the work. That is the work. That's what drag is too. Drag is about exposing these things, Like really funny, good drag is like, see this stupid dress and my tits out? Like, but isn't it funny how it's like this? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Now, Tarkovsky is good at a lot of things. I would never call any of his work funny.
It's not funny. It's not funny. And we really need to do something funny soon. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Maybe we'll do Truth and Comedy coming up. We can do Del Close and Trying to Help Him. Yeah, let's have Turn on the show.
Oh, my.
Oh, my God.
That'll go great.
That'll go great. That will, yeah.
What a delight. Everybody's favorite person.
Especially in Chicago.
Now, Tarkovsky also had a reputation for being kind of a cut up in interviews. Very famously, when he was nearly dead, visited the United States, and they took him on a tour to visit Monument Valley, where all the John Ford westerns were shot. And he was so astonished and moved by the by the landscape that he says, "How can you make this commercial trash here? How can you shoot a western here? The only thing that you should shoot in a place like this is films about God."
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of crazy.
But like his desire to seek out inspiring landscapes is also what sent him to Eastern Europe to shoot Stalker and eventually killed him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Stalker, I think, does give you a sense of how he imagines the way that cinema interacts with the landscape.
My father went to various landscapes in pursuit of capital for his job as a defense attorney for various environmentally evil companies, and got sick and died.
Everybody say Monsanto.
Yeah,
Monsanto.
it's just like, is that just like what successful men do? Is they just like go to places that get them sick?
I think that it's a thing workers do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the thing Tarkovsky and your father had in common was that they were out there working.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, who else got sick at those sites? All the workers in that building.
Yeah. I think about that. Yeah.
And who else got sick from that movie that Tarkovsky, dragged a bunch of people to? All the cast and crew.
Yeah.
And this isn't even the first time this happened. Very famously, this occurred with John Wayne. Mm-hmm. Making a movie with for Howard Hughes, where they shot in New Mexico near where they were doing nuclear weapons testing in White Sands. And as a result, when they had to do reshoots, they didn't want to send everybody back to New Mexico, but they wanted the sand to match. So they sent trucks to go pick up the radioactive sand and bring it to the back lot.
Oh my God.
So they could finish shooting. And everyone got cancer and died. It's the kind of lesson that you wish people didn't have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you watch Return of the King and you're glad Peter Jackson went to Mount Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's worth something cinematically. Gondor, you can't make that with CGI.
Fun fact, I have never seen any of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, well, they are going to screen in 35 millimeter at the Music Box here in Chicago later in June, so go and get your tickets now.
We don't work.
So you use offer code Virtue Signal 10.
Yeah.
We got married at the Music Box, so I'm going to plug them whenever I want.
It's true, we did get married in the Music Box.
I'm ready to problematize Mr. Tarkovsky.
Go for it.
He seems to view himself as an aristocrat. He uses that word a couple times in the book, that the artist is to be an aristocrat.
Well, I think he means it in like a noblesse oblige sense. Like, as a person in my position, I'm obligated to do these things to like educate and make and create.
Does that go back to the masculinity you pointed out?
Yes.
He was butch, but he was also, and this is important to remember, hot.
He was hot. He was yeah.
Super
Fun
hot
fact.
his whole life.
Yeah. He was a really attractive guy.
10 out of 10 baddie.
Yeah, it's true.
He does have a smolder.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Much like your dad.
They look a lot alike.
They do. It's weird. Yeah. We should have your
I've
dad
never
on the
seen
show.
them in the same room.
No, my father was born in the 50s, so he's a little bit too young to be Andrei Tarkovsky in disguise.
Yeah, I mean, and also there's the kind of like hotness that like guys have where they're just like, well, this is just what life is like. And it's like, no, you're hot. Like, it's actually not really like that for other people. It's like my friend, like one of my besties, Jillian, is like a very beautiful woman. And she's always talking about it. She's like, oh my God, people are just so nice. And I'm like, yeah, to you. And I literally notice it when I hang out with her. Like, people are just straight up nicer to us. It's crazy.
Now, I noticed there was a tweet I saw this morning that this woman said that when she wears her prescription glasses, things cost a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she's not as attractive when she's wearing them.
Yeah. No, it's very real. So how do you think that affected him in terms of his...
I think that the Soviet censors were on the one side like, everything he says is contrary to our ideology. He insists on having all of this spirituality and explicit religion in his work, despite religion being the enemy of the state. But he's so hot.
Yeah.
We have to let him make whatever he wants. He's so hot.
Yeah.
And, that worked out for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He definitely eschews the material realm. The spiritual is of the highest importance to him.
Right. In the way
over
that
everything else.
In the way that hot people will say like, oh, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's more important is this and this and this. And it's like, okay, all right.
Well, being insulated a little bit from the realities of the world allowed him to, spend time playing around in his imagination.
Well, this is like what we talk about with the bourgeois radical, right? Like the reason they're able to be a radical is because of their particular class position. Yeah.
And instead of being born to great wealth, he was just
hot.
Born to hotness. Yeah. Social capital, he's a billionaire.
Yeah, I think social capital is not.
But yeah,
real,
I mean,
but okay.
you see not just in the For All Mankind thing, but also like in Atomic Blonde, they go, there's a fight scene at a screening of Stalker.
When we went to see Atomic Blonde at that movie theater in the South Loop, that's when we saw Halle Berry, right? Speaking of hot people, and she was there like promoting some movie that wasn't Atomic Blonde. She's very tiny, and she literally glowed. Like it was like a light was emanating from her. She's
very
so
beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, something to say.
But I think that maybe the reason that like the Soviets were very good at movies. They made a lot of movies that a lot of people liked. Movies that even before Tarkovsky starts to have a career start to win prizes at Cannes and even get nominated for Academy Awards and things. But I think the reason maybe that Tarkovsky is essentially, apart from, as I said, Tetris, the lasting cultural contribution of the Soviet Union, is that he's so uninterested in class.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about the struggle. He doesn't even deal with it. He never brings it up.
I think part of that turn to nature comes to this concept that I've been developing for about 10 years now, which is a thing that we especially use hot people to represent, which is a disidentification with being alive. It's like, it's not that you're trans. It's not that you're, yearning to be some other office, occupy some other office or profession or whatever. There's just like a fundamental disalignment with being alive. Don Draper is this. It's like a thing that we can chart aesthetically through hot people with interiority. It's like how we sort of designate what that means. And I think Andrei Tarkovsky is exploring that terrain. Do you think so?
Yeah, and it is partly a mid-century existentialist thing, and it's partly the religious thing.
Well, this is what I think stand-up comedy fundamentally is. I think stand-up comedy is fundamentally a disidentification with being alive or with being a person. It's why all the greats are so miserable. Like the premise of John Mulaney's whole deal is like, isn't it crazy that I look like this, but I feel like this? you know?
Right. Yeah, he looks like a Howdy Doody puppet, but he has an interiority. He has
Yeah,
a soul.
he has a soul, and it's bad. It's tortured.
Yeah.
It's bad. He's constantly relapsing. Like he's like a mess.
He's like a haunted ventriloquist.
Yeah,
dummy.
exactly. Yeah, and and Richard Pryor was like this. It's why he never took anything seriously. Like one of my favorite things Richard Pryor does is he has this thing where he's talking about making a movie with somebody, and he's like, "Oh, well, we don't want to mess up the film," and he says the word "film" like this because he's like, "Why would you, film? It's so stupid. Like everything is stupid to him." He's just like, "Why would you do it? Like this is so stupid." Like he thought Paul Schrader was stupid. He's like
When they worked together on the movie Blue Collar.
Yeah, he was just like, why would you take this? What are you trying to? You think you're somebody? You know, like you're fucking nobody. And it's this. Yeah, it's kind of anti-intellectualism that's pervasive in stand-ups, but like it's also just like, what are you doing? Like this is bullshit. Like this is so fake. You know.
And nobody ever took himself more seriously than Tarkovsky. Did.
Exactly. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see this disidentification with being alive as like a self-seriousness, as opposed to what I usually see as the opposite. You know. Yeah.
I wonder if he would say that the material world is what's not alive, and that he is alive.
That's what I'm saying, and that's the turn to nature too. Is that like nature is real? That when the water falling into the puddle is real.
Except it's not always real.
Okay.
In a lot of his films, he is concerned with memories, dreams, hallucinations, and illusions. Mm-hmm. And in that way, he is doing the thing Deleuze talks about in Cinema 2. Mm-hmm. If you look at the end of even Ivan's childhood, very early in his career, it doesn't end with the brutal death of this child soldier. It ends with this beautiful dream sequence.
Yeah.
And there are these metaphysical meditations on ideas as visuals. And, Tarkovsky was a big supporter of Sergei Prajinov, who made The Color of Pomegranates, which is an entirely lyrical, metaphorical film that was ripped off a few years ago in the
music video for 911 by Lady Gaga.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. She completely ripped it off. Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at, say, for example, Tarkovsky's Mirror, right? The whole film is just a series of just memories that he has and dreams that he has.
But it's all those are perforations of the solidity. I think there's a real solidity and totality that gets perforated by those dreams.
Not in, say, for example, Solaris.
Okay.
In Solaris, the thing that tortures the main character is that he can't immediately tell the difference between reality and the projection of fantasy, right? His dead wife comes back to him, and he goes back and forth between being comforted and being horrified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's real. That's
right.
brief.
And
yeah.
And it ends not with the return to reality on the planet Earth, but living on a manufactured, illusory island on an alien planet. Mm-hmm. And then later on, Stalker, right? They can't trust their senses when they're walking in this natural environment. There are threats to them that they cannot perceive. Mm-hmm. That not only can they not perceive, they can't understand, they can't comprehend.
But that's very Soviet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just generally speaking, the whole idea that radiation is this threat to people that is just out there in the world. I mean, Stalker feels like a post-Chernobyl film, even though it came out 7 years before the Chernobyl disaster occurred. It's like when the video game Stalker is made, it's set in a post-nuclear disaster space, not a the zone as we understand it in Stalker, which is the product of something closer to the Tunguska event, which was the crashing of a meteorite into Siberia. I think that over and over again, Tarkovsky, it comes down with the idea that we don't know what's going on based on our senses, and that all we can do is use poetry and imagination to make sense of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. In that sense, he's the ultimate postmodern subject, and there's just 70 perspectives you can take on it. There's a zillion theses you could take.
he's very good at what he does.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm a little bit. I'm on the fence about the guy.
Okay.
I think he's clearly a brilliant mind,
Yeah.
a visionary, has a lot to say about, telling the truth through life, truth about life through art. But that's just it, is he has a lot to say about it, doesn't he?
Talky,
He is
He's a chatty Cathy.
didactic.
by his own words, his goal in his work is to show you how to live your life, to prepare your soul for death. And I don't know how you take that on without a little bit of the same kind of delusion all strong-willed people have, right? A sort of
Well, that's the thing about manifestos. Is like the thing that I love about manifestos is that it assumes, it's inherent to the premise of a manifesto, that you're being an asshole, that you're being didactic, that you're telling people what to do, because that's the fucking premise of a manifesto. And so it's like, that's just a given.
Well, I think that well-behaved Russians rarely make history.
let's see, something else I don't like about him.
Tell me more.
He has a strong emphasis placed, particularly at the end of the book, on personal freedom and personal responsibility. And I don't know.
That's the Kierkegaard, yeah.
Okay, that's worth something, because that's not. This gentleman was conscious of his high degree of social capital, right? But he happened to find himself in a place where, even though it had betrayed its ideals, one was not as free to pursue their individual capital in various forms as they were in the West. He then goes on to defect. Obviously, there's other reasons why, but it's not a coincidence that he now gets to cash in and become a member of the petit bourgeois. And so when I hear him saying these things and telling artists to, like, you're gonna hate me. You're gonna hate me.
Oh my God.
Telling artists to pull their pants up
Yeah.
and start making films about God or whatever. I'm just kind of like, okay, buddy.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is he was really into Japan.
Oh yeah. That's
Well, he had a good
Well, he's a
relationship with
weeb.
Kurosawa. But even though Kurosawa was a better communist than him.
You're gonna give him a hard time for being a weeb, Taylor?
In honor of that, I've actually written a haiku
Okay.
about Mr. Tarkovsky.
Writing poetry to describe your feelings is something Tarkovsky would have been very much in favor of.
And the haiku in particular was a form that he found, the nature and the totalizing aspect of it. Okay. Libertarian weeaboo. Defect my foot up your ass, Playboy.
Excellent.
And then below that I wrote, Ein Bland.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think
Ayn Rand does have something in common with Tarkovsky, doesn't she? Because they both left the Soviet Union, and explicitly because of the lack of individual freedom, and then died young afterward. So they leave because they want to go and indulge in capitalist excess of the West, and then
debauchery.
seemingly get punished by God for it.
A little bit of environmental regulation would have gone a long way for Tarkovsky and the gang.
No, I don't know if, like, he has a very Christian attitude toward individual responsibility, right? And I think that his attitude toward individual, like, moral choice sees anything that intervenes in individual choice as being a kind of, like, restriction from the individual doing their obligation to God, which is very different from Ayn Rand's perspective. Ayn Rand was very much an atheist. You know, I think that the thing about, like, individual responsibility, though, you know, you do see Tolstoy say more or less the opposite. That the Christian project is a project everyone is participating in, and we are working together, right? Which is more of like a Trotskyite, international kind of approach to the relationship between communism and Christianity. But Tarkovsky is, like you were saying, like, let's focus on us. Let's just do me.
Yeah, and it's also, there's this common saying that people have that I used to think was true, which is that, like, if you can't write women, you're not a good writer. But honestly, he's not good at women, but he's clearly
He
very
doesn't spend a lot of
good.
time on women. That's
yeah,
for
they're
sure.
sort of their vehicles.
I think you see some interesting women characters in Mirror, but that's because that's a film that's more or less about his mother.
Yeah, right. Which is like, and mommy is different from women. Mommy is,
I don't know that he's really capable of depicting anybody except himself.
Yeah.
Like in Ivan's childhood, I think that we see his comprehension of the child, Ivan, the soldier, is like, here's a person who's miserable and surrounded by grown-ups who are somehow dumber than him. Mm-hmm. And it makes him alienated from them because he can't connect with anybody. And then we see that exact same kind of alienation with his main characters over and over again for the next 20 years.
Yeah. And it just like, it makes me think like Ivan's boyhood, Like that's not, there's something very specific about that experience that he's telling, which is fine and great. I just wish there were more analysis of it.
I think one of the things that makes him so profoundly individualistic and solipsistic even sometimes is his obsession with consuming art. Mm-hmm. And you see in all of these films this like repeated taking pleasure and then like really hyper focusing on just looking at paintings and listening to music and reading poetry as though watching someone do that is somehow compelling. And often it is in Ivan's childhood when he's looking at the paintings in the book, or in Andrei Rublev.
It's really funny you say this because there was this tweet the other day that was talking about how AI writing is not good writing, and like trying to identify like the things that demarcate AI writing. And one of them is, this person was saying, is that it often describes a person not really doing anything. And so that's how you can tell it's AI. And then someone's like, modernist literature completely destroyed. Because that is like all of modernist literature is just described. This is like Thomas Bernhardt. This is Beckett. This is
so many
everybody.
novels that take
this
a lot of time
Moshfegh.
to describe what it's like to sit on a train and not
Proust.
want to get where you're going.
Yeah, it's just like I was like, oh fuck. What does it mean that like AI is reheating modernism's nachos? I don't know.
Well, maybe it means that eventually we'll get to the other side of it, and then it'll be doing like every AI will be just like 80s New York transgressive literature, and it's and you ask it to make you a PowerPoint presentation, and it includes a sex scene.
The Vudge AI monologues.
Wait. Oh my god, wait. Are you onto something?
Let me take that back.
Hold
Let me
on.
take that again. Vudge AI monologues. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. You got
J.I. Nov's childhood's monologues. No.
Taylor is going to wander back and forth in an empty swimming pool, just repeating vagina monologues over and over again.
Yeah. I was in a production of the Divine Vagina monologues once, actually. It was terrible. I hate it.
Eleanor played the vagina.
I was the
Wait
vagina.
a second. You were in a production of the vagina monologues, and it was bad?
I know. Shocking. Right. Yeah. Yeah. God, I hate it. I hate that show. And then the thing is, like, the campus Republicans started attacking. This is when I was at Albion College, my first year, and people were attacking it. And we had to and my friend Rachel McKinney and I were like, we didn't even like the show, but we had to do it anyway. So we were just like, now we have to fucking defend this shit because these Republican asshole. It was horrible.
You know what it's
I was
like?
18. It was terrible.
It's like the thing where right-wing assholes say, how come there are no women geniuses in art, right? And they compare women's work to things that men made. and it's like the vagina monologues versus puppetry of the penis.
And it's like, I hate
Puppetry of the Penis is a great show.
I actually have not seen it. Is it good?
It's very funny.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, I didn't know. You saw it?
Oh yeah, they had free tickets when I was an undergrad.
I have no idea. The David Rakoff essay about it seems to indicate otherwise. So
Yeah, David Rakoff didn't like anything. Also, died of cancer, right?
what's your point? That he deserved it?
Sucker.
Fucking loser.
Hey, if we're going to taunt people we don't like when they die young, then we also have to taunt people we do like when they die young.
He wasn't even that young, but
Either you take the L or you do not. We have to be ethically contiguous.
Okay.
Andre gets in the time machine, sees James Dean about to get on the motorcycle, and he's like, "Oh,
Keep
I did a
going.
thumbs up. Yeah, keep it up. Go for it, young man."
Go for
It
it,
was a
young
roadster.
man. Go west, young man. Like Josiah Grinnell.
I don't think. See, okay, now this is a situation like Roland Barthes where I wonder to what extent James Dean did that intentionally. In which case, I don't think that like a heads up that you should wear your seatbelt was really the only intervention that was necessary. This is a guy who had he had guys putting cigarettes out on him because that was what he was into.
Yeah.
And like that means that there's probably a little bit of work you got to do to feel all right about yourself.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, James Dean. You would have loved the film Cruising.
BPD girly. For real.
BP Dean.
BP Dean. Anything else we have to say?
About Andrei Tarkovsky?
Yeah, and Sculpting in Time.
I want to note that I don't. Obviously, I'm like the third most knowledgeable about film in the room, but I don't see David Lynch really without this guy.
Yeah.
With
I
that
think,
spiritualism.
yeah, but not really formally. I don't see a lot of formal Tarkovsky choices in
Are they
David
not
Lynch's
both
films.
dreamlike and surreal?
Yeah, but there's that like
The use
Nature.
of slow motion to indicate the dream is a thing that they share.
and I guess Twin Peaks is like in Twin Peaks there's like a lot of like Laura on the beach. And,
The
like,
idea that the
mountains.
environment itself has a kind of like psychic damage that it imposes upon the people there as a
Yeah.
result of some kind of like
Yes.
struggle between human beings and nature.
There's something about like being in a thin place, you know? Like
Yeah, Twin
like,
Peaks,
is a thin
Washington
place.
is like the place where the zone from Stalker.
Actually, I was telling Andre about this. I've been developing a list of thick places as opposed to thin places.
okay.
So here's my list so far.
Please.
The Walmart in Grinnell, Iowa. The part of Sheridan Road that meets Sheridan Road in Evanston.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'm really against it.
The place where there are rigid walls between the real world and the world of the spirit realm.
Any hot food bar at a Whole Foods.
TSA.
TSA,
Ooh.
the 7-Eleven, specifically the one on Pratt. What else? Green Bay, Wisconsin is a thick place, I think. Feel free to contribute. Also, chat, please sound off in your comments. You know, what do you think are thick places? This is an ongoing investigation of
The
mine.
DeKalb Oasis.
I think you kind of get a sense from The Sacrifice and from
Marion, Illinois.
from nostalgia that Tarkovsky more or less saw the entire West.
Yeah, as a thick place. Yeah.
Right, like he leaves the Soviet Union in order to have individual freedom, and he's like, "Oh no, everything here sucks."
Yeah.
And then the final two films he makes are about how it's impossible to have a soul.
Yeah.
What 4 weeks in the West does to a motherfucker. As soon as you pay rent for the first time, you're like, you know what? We should call it a wrap
You see,
on.
like the grass always looks greener on the other side of the Berlin Wall.